not get an agenda. They are still sitting out here on the table if you need one. We're here tonight to find solutions, not have sudden outbursts. I'm not tolerating sudden outbursts. When somebody comes to the podium, you have 3 minutes. You can go longer than 3 minutes. I do not mind that to get your questions and answers. So just make sure you go to the podium. Raise your hand. I will pick you and go to the podium. As they are speaking, I expect the gallery to be quiet while they're asking questions or answers. This panel, at the end, once we're done with all the questions and everything, the panel will have time to talk and come up with solutions, things like that. Oh, thank you. So be mindful of everybody, please. This is not, we are coming up with solutions for this town and making it a better place to live. So please keep your comments to yourself. Only at the podium will you be able to have your comments. I did not line 15 buckets of water back here, so no. So just, like I said, let's be all citizens and work together on the solutions we need to do. So I'm going to introduce the panel. Is Dave Powers, pastor of Columbia Presbyterian Church, Heather Morrison-Dink, president of Borough of Columbia Council, Jack Brommer, police chief, Borough of Columbia, and Mark Stivers, manager of Borough of Columbia. Meeting code of conduct. The moderator will call upon individuals in the gallery with bipartisan statements. Statements will be given with solution-based answers and non-targeting rebuttal or remarks during this meeting. Individuals will have 3 minutes. You can go over a little longer. I do not mind that. To make their statement at the podium, address or name is not necessary at this solution-based meeting. Outbursts from the gallery will not be tolerated until called upon to the podium. Moderator may stop all comments and rebuttals at the podium if unruly exchanges occur during this meeting. So, like I said, nobody's ever seen this Italian's hot temper, so just keep it cool. Thanks. So,
I got her.
So, would anybody like to go to the podium, please raise your hand. Just works.
Some additional agendas.
I'd like to start out with a quick all-to comment. Yeah. Is it on? Yeah. I'd like to start out with a quick all-to comment story regarding the homeless. I happen to walk the streets a lot with my dog, day and night, and I came upon at 4th and Locust Street a young lady laying on the sidewalk. It was cold, very cold. I walked up to her and I said, "Are you okay?" She goes, "No, I'm very cold." So I walked across the street and knocked on the door. The gentleman came out and I said, "Do you have an extra blanket?" He graciously gave me a blanket. We went over and covered her up. Well, the night before, she was asleep behind the bushes of the church, Fourth and Locust. So, it's sad. It's sad that that's what we encounter in this community. Just not this community, but this county, state, and country. I actually have an interest in downtown, just like most people do. I'm also a resident. I have great concerns about the number of homeless that come into this community. I'm not particularly blaming the church as the sole reason why. I'm talking the Presbyterian Church of Fourth and Locust. But there is an attraction to that church for some reason. I've spent many nights, I've fed some of them. I even gave them some money. We talked a lot. I said talk a lot. They opened up. Why are they coming to Columbia? there are many reasons they come to Columbia. They're everywhere. You know, it's so sad when you get down to the river park and they're all covered up when you have tourists in town. And at nights they walk in groups, the alleyways. I see it, I witnessed it. I can tell you, and I'm speaking from experience, that we in this community have a very serious issue with the homeless. A lot of them tend to lean towards that church up there. I've got many pictures of them sleeping outside the church. I've got many pictures of them sleeping at Rotary Park, the River Park, the encampment down on the bottom of Plain Street, down by the water company, all over the park. Behind our restaurant, we call them urinating. Behind the State Farm building, we call them sleeping back there, doing other things too. We've actually had somebody walk into the restaurant the other day to our bathroom and took out all the fresheners. They're homeless people. I realize they're homeless for a reason. There's many reasons why they're homeless. One, some chose to be homeless, some can't help it, and some have mental illness. We all know that. We all know that. However, there needs to be a solution. We as a community, borough, business association, the residents, can figure out how to resolve this issue. You're not going to solve it tonight. You're going to have a few solutions, I'm sure. But you're not going to, it's too big. I don't think we know as a community how big the homeless issue here is in Columbia. Like I said, at nighttime, I'll go for a walk and they're everywhere. I'm talking everywhere. It's not the church, but all down Lower Street, the alleyways. You've got to be scared, I think, many times. You've got to be scared to walk the streets. They're walking in groups. You know, they're laying everywhere. It's not a good thing to see. It's not good to see people laying on the streets, on benches. You know, I've had a conversation with the pastor. I'm not totally convinced what's going on up there at that church is the right thing. I will say this, and you can comment, and you can say anything you want, but I've done a lot of research. I've talked to a lot of people, and they're not totally convinced that that church up there is on board. I get what you're trying to do. You know, I've asked you many questions. I started with, do we do background checks? You know, when that church first became a homeless shelter, I believe I asked the Borough Council if it went through zoning. And I'm not quite sure if I got the right answer or if I got an answer. Maybe the church is allowed to do that. I don't know if they can just go from a church to a homeless shelter. I've asked if it was inspected by our codes, if the fire inspector was in there. There's a lot of things I think that need to be answered. I know that I was invited to come up to the church. I refused to come up there because, point being that if I would have went up there, you would have made it the way that you want us to perceive it to be. I get that. I would rather go up there unannounced. Okay? I would rather go up there and see for myself what really goes on. I hear different stories. Now, I don't believe them all. I don't believe them all, but I do know that there is drug dealing going on. One of the officers in the force that I met, there was an individual sitting on the church steps, drinking beer and smoking dope. He was removed. Okay, so there is that activity. Again, I'm one to see it before I need to see it before I leave. Okay, I'll give anybody the benefit of the doubt, but I truly think that I'm just not comfortable. I'm not comfortable with what I'm hearing. I hope that everybody's wrong and you're right. I hope that's the case, but not everybody is wrong. Not everybody is right. As coming from a business position, we've had an individual that was sitting on my bench, plugging his cell phone in. I was very nice to say, look, I don't mind you doing that, but you can't lay here, you can't stay here, you just have to move on. Well, I was called everything in the book, every name in the book there was. So I asked him to move, and he went to do it, so I had to call the police. Well, long story short there was, this individual was wanted and a number of warrants. So that brings me to my question that anybody that is accepted into the church up there as a homeless person, what type of background checks do we do? Do we do any? Do we share it with our police department? Do we know what type of individuals are staying there? All these questions need to be answered. And again, I'm not insensitive to the homeless. I prefer that we find a location other than the downtown district that's being revitalized, does not leave a good picture of what Columbia's become. It's just, and I want you to understand, it's just not the issues with the church. There is a major homeless problem in this town. Don't believe me. Get out of bed at night, go for a walk, go for a ride. Go look where they're sleeping. It is huge. So I don't want to, I'm not going to continue to bring up all the negatives about the homelessness. I'm here, hopefully, that you guys, this crowd, can come up with a solution. It's not going to be short-term. Let's don't kid ourselves. This is a national, global, state, whatever you want to call it, problem. I have a hard time understanding why Columbia is an attraction. Why there are new faces every day. And I speak from experience when I say that. I mean, I sit out here in the evenings and I see different faces. So it's not, we have a certain group that stay here. They're coming in, they're just coming in, by the handful. And again, I think we need to find out first why they're coming to Columbia. It's because at least we figured that part out. I think the chief probably knows some of the reasons. Pastor may know, I don't know, but we need to find out why they're coming to Columbia. And I that has an interest in the downtown, I'm more than willing to become part of the solution. I'm not going to be one of these where let's get rid of them, get rid of them. That's going to resolve the problem. It's not. And I understand, Pastor, if I understood you correctly, that the shelter is just temporary. Am I correct?
You're correct.
Okay, I think the start of the solution to this problem, part of it, is to give this town, give this borough an end date when it's time to move out. And I hope that happens soon, and I hope you find a location for a homeless shelter. And I thank you for the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Next person, John.
Yeah, I started with please. As a personal experience, I know to show up here. I stayed there from May to September, and yes, we do go through a background check. We do. They do different things for us, and yes, we've got a set of rules. If you don't abide by those rules, they ask us to leave. And if they don't have jobs, they have resources there to find us jobs. which I had already, but, and me, I got my own place thanks to them now. I got my own place on the dirt road, but as the Bible says, if they're hungry, feed them. If they're thirsty, give them rest. And that's what the church is. It gives them rest.
Thank you.
Next person? Next person? Anybody? Sure, go right ahead.
So I feel like we literally just had this meeting in January of this year. During January of this year.
Microphone.
What's that?
It's on.
I don't know,
Put it up.
it's on, you just have to be right up here. Right here. For you, I'm gonna talk like this, okay?
You can actually take it out of the.
Yeah, Chris, you can hold it if you want. Just pull it out. Just so you guys know, the microphone picks up more for the recording of this meeting than actually broadcasting in the room. Because if you turn it up too high, you start getting feedback. So it's on, it's recording. You may not be able to hear as much in the room, but Chris knows how to speak loud.
I can speak up too, if it's helpful. But if we're recording the meeting, I can also do this. Well, my name's Chris Dreisbach.
He said it wasn't necessary.
He said it wasn't necessary, but I will. Yeah, I'm Chris Dreisbach. I'm the CEO of Blueprints for Addiction Recovery. I'm also a board member of the Lancaster Food Hub. I'm also a board member of the wonderful Lancaster County Coalition to End Homelessness, or whatever they're calling it this month. And, I mean, we change names a lot, 'cause it's real important, you know. But the one thing that was super important in battling homelessness in this county is collaboration. It's coming together, not fighting, not battling, not looking at the circumstance and saying, oh, that person's bad because they peed behind my restaurant. Of course you have to pee. If I have nowhere to pee, where do you think that's going to happen? Right? I mean, these are things that happen literally everywhere. The problem in Columbia is real, but it is not nearly as bad as the problem in other areas. But the way that we can come together and fix this problem is by supporting the people who are passionately fighting for those individuals, like Pastor David, like his crew over at the church, like the people at the county trying to end homelessness. And if we come together and build an interdisciplinary team filled with individuals from all corners of social services, from the police department, from the mayor's office, the borough manager, the borough council, we can all come together. We can get together and come up with solutions. And I'm not talking about a surface level solution to move the undesirable people from point A to point B. I'm talking about moving the undesirable people, like I used to be, from point A to living a very meaningful, powerful life and be able to bring things to this community, strong things. The amount of taxes that I've paid to Columbia is absurd and painful every single year for me because I own property here. I used to be homeless. I used to live in parks. I used to be a drug addict. I used to go to jail repeatedly. My mom is sitting here, she can verify. It's a real thing. I was a bad person, an undesirable, one of those guys who peed in public because he had nowhere else to relieve himself. I had to sleep in parks and on benches because nobody would give me a couch. This is the reality for some people. And I know for a fact, if my mom was homeless, I would hope to God that there's a Dave Powers to take her in every single time, regardless of how many feathers it ruffles, regardless of how uncomfortable it is to look at somebody who's dirty and homeless and struggling and suffering. It does not matter. They are people. They are our neighbors. They are our friends. They are our brothers. They are our sisters. Any squabbling beyond that is pointless. Period. End of story. So I love Columbia, despite some of the negatives. And I will never, ever stop coming to these meetings. And I will never stop talking about how we need to take care of our neighbors. Because I was taken care of by people 17 years ago. And they showed me a different way to live here in Lancaster County. And I am so thankful. And I will be forever grateful to the people who gave me a second chance at life. Thank you, Chris, for letting me come up here and talk.
Any other questions to me? Anybody? Okay, sir.
Hi, I'm Pastor Mark Harris from Salem UCC over on Walnut Street. The homeless shelter used to be located on 4th Street. Had a building, wasn't nearly the issue that it is now. I want to acknowledge a few things, especially for all the business owners here and the people who are concerned about the difficulties that are happening. I've been working with homeless folks for a long time, never as in-depth as Reverend Powers has. He is an inspiration to me. But I can tell you, it is worse than I have ever seen it in my life. I'm 53 years old. It's really bad. The increase in the housing prices have caused it to be that people who are in the homeless system aren't able to move through it and into housing as easily as they have been in the past. But in the time that I've been working with Reverend Powers, that I've been working with the shelter here in Columbia, I have watched the team there move people through homelessness and into housing. I have watched them move people through homelessness and into jobs. I have also watched them shepherd people through homelessness and into their graves at times. That's a reality of something that happens here in Columbia as well. I think that Reverend Powers is a leader in compassion in our community. I think that no community, when they sit down and say, hey, where should we put the homeless shelter, says, I know, Main Street. Nobody says that. And when Dave was contending with the loss of the rental space that he had the shelter in, and I was talking to him about that, and I said, well, what are you going to do? And he said, I mean, barring anything else, I guess we're going to put it in the church. I went, oof, because I knew that's already what he was feeling. Like, that is not ideal. That is not the plan. That is not, going to be the permanent solution. We can't end the problem by ignoring it or by shipping people out. We can't do DeSantis or Governor Abbott and ship everyone to Manheim Township. It's an interesting idea. I mean, I'll leave that up to the government. Maybe we can just get a bus and, But the reality is that there are some services here in Columbia. There is a welcome, I consider it a welcoming town, and that is one of the reasons that I think homeless people end up here. A lot of the pastors here who are represented very well here tonight are quick to help. The solution here, I don't think, is to get rid of the shelter without an alternative. It's to find an alternative that's going to work on a more permanent basis, that can be in a more appropriate place, and that can provide the services that are needed. And in the meantime, continuing to revitalize the city and revitalize the downtown and increase the number of jobs here and the number of businesses here. All of that is going to help as well. So all of us who are sitting in this room have a part in this. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Mylan Kona. I am an outreach worker with the homeless population around Lancaster County. I've been doing this job for about 2 years now. So my relationship with the area is basically through the Columbia Resource Center, hands across the street, Pastor Dave and the crew that work here. The two gentlemen before me that both just said a lot of what I wanted to say already, so I don't want to really repeat all of that. But I find folks that are out on the streets, I find folks that are out in the woods. I am all over the county. I wish I could clone 20 of me to do this work. It is not enough. It is a severe problem, and during the time that I've worked in the county, it has gotten so much worse. And I'm not saying that to make everybody, feel depressed about it either, but the work is hard. It's a struggle for the folks that we're working with and a struggle for the people that are working with them. There needs to be more of us, and the solution is more beds. The solution is more space. The solution is more people like Pastor Dave and the folks that are willing to do the work every day and to walk alongside those people during those struggles. That is so important. We cannot push those people away and give them less resources to do the work. of course you're not going to see the results that you wish you did. Those ideal results aren't going to show up if they don't have the power, they don't have the means to do it. We can only work with what's in our hands, right? But I will say I've met so many people that know that they can go to the resource center when they need help. I have folks that lived in cars. I have folks that have lived in the shelter for longer than anybody would wish for them to be in there. Yeah, I mean, do you think the folks that work at the shelter want those people to be there? More than anybody else, they want them to leave the shelter. They want to see them prosper, move on to better things, right? And they are doing that. It's not as fast as we wish it could be. It's not as ideal as we wish it was. So how do we fix that? What are the solutions to those things, right? We give more resources if we can. We try to work that into the plan, not take away. Those problems and those struggles are going to exist no matter what you decide to do. Those folks with those issues are out there. Like some people said, they could move to another part of the county, right? But it's transient. Right now, it's worse than ever all over the county, all over the country. That's why we're seeing it more, because we have people from Philly, from other states, right, coming in and out of the area because they don't have options. They're not sure what else to do. That's what I would do. If my area didn't work, I'd try the next town over. I would try the bigger city. I would try wherever somebody told me would work, right? If Columbia is a welcoming place and they have those resources, people are going to come. But that's a part of the solution. The real solution is how well you can deal with it when it gets to you, right? And how well you can help guide people into better situations. It's not always going to be perfect, but you need people that are going to do the work, and you need people that have resources, right, to do the work as well. And since I've been in this job, with whatever amount of resources they've had and all the changes that they've had, Pastor Dave and the crew that work there have done amazing things for folks. It's not always pretty. But I very much appreciate the people that can look ugly in the face and that can look at those rough situations and find hope and tell them that, maybe it's not going to be okay in that moment, but we're going to work on how to get there, right? And we're going to be there the whole time, and as long as we can be. And we're going to be patient about it, and we're going to give you second chances. Because, again, if I was there, I'd want the second chance, right? Or people you knew. I know that if I met somebody tomorrow in my job, and I told them to go talk to somebody over the resource center, I'd have full confidence that they're going to get help, they're going to get local resources, they're going to get pointed in the right direction, they're going to get things before they leave to remember what they need to do before they come back. And yes, they are going to get background checks, and they are going to get talked to about the rules, and they are going to get, boundaries and things like that that have to be established. That's always going to be there, and that's always been a part of the process since I've been involved. And I can't thank them enough for doing what they do in the area, because for me, there just needs to be more and more and more of that. And I'm very appreciative of everything that they do. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Can you tell us who you work for, please?
I work for a nonprofit called Tenfold over in Lex City, but we work with that.
It's awesome. Thank you.
Okay.
Next question.
Thank you.
One at a time. Are you twins or? Then I will allow that.
My name is Karen Baker. Her name is Ellie Shirk. And we were late to the meeting because we were serving the guests at the homeless shelter.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We've been doing this for about 2 years now. And I would say the situation right now is not near as good as it was when we started, because we were down at the house building that housed maybe 25 or 30 people. Now we're serving 15 people, and we served probably 6 to 8 people outside tonight because there's no room for them inside. We've got to know a lot of people. We've got to be friends with people. And I think it's a shame that somebody's afraid to go into the shelter and meet these people, because they're people who fell on hard times. Like anybody in this room could happen. It could happen to anybody. I mean, 1 minute you're fine and the next minute you're homeless. And I really think it's a shame that you're afraid to go down there, because I will admit that some of my group that when we first started,
Ma'am,
I'm
please
sorry.
don't target.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I just think that it's a shame that anybody would be afraid to go to the shelter because there's nothing scary there. They're wonderful people. They fell on hard times. Anybody here could fall on hard times and end up on the street, in the shelter. My church is a very small church, and we bring donations to the Dream Center at least once a week, and we serve every other week. I'm surprised that there's not more people in Columbia that would be willing to do that. We're one of the few churches, and we're not even in Columbia, that we're from Ironville United Methodist Church, that take time to serve the shelter. And we love doing it. And I mean, Barb is a good friend. Lizzie and Suzanne, I mean, there's nothing to be afraid of. And I don't know what to say, is that I just feel bad for everybody because it was so much better when they were at the other place. And now, I agree with everybody, it's not an ideal situation for anybody. There's no privacy. It's just, but it's better than being on the street. So, that's what I have.
Thank you.
I'm Ellie Shirk. I started doing this with Karen from Ironville. And I have to admit, when I first started to go there, I was a little scared at first. But I got to know a lot of people at that shelter. And they're wonderful people. We have made friends. I have had issues with my daughter, and she's bipolar. And I have made a friend in Chris back here. He was so good and helped me to realize all of these things that are going on. You know, we have no idea what these people go through and the amount of money that it costs. You know, these people work, but they don't have enough of money to afford a house and a car and all this stuff. And you know, it's really sad that we can't help these people because you all know what the price of food is now. You know what the price of housing is. These people have just fallen on hard times and they need our help. And like I said, when I first came here, I wasn't so sure, but I've made friends. Barb is a friend of mine. Chris is a friend of mine. John is a friend of mine. And they're all wonderful people. And we need to help these people. I don't know how, but turning your back on them and trying to say, well, you know, throw your hands up and say, well, we can't do anything about it, or we want them out of here. Help. Help these people. Give them help.
Yeah, volunteer.
Come and volunteer. Come and meet these people and see what wonderful people they really are. They've just fallen on hard times.
Right.
And if we had more volunteers, they wouldn't be on the street.
Exactly. These people need our help. And you know, that's what God put us here for. God loves us and He loves them. And we need to love them in return. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Next question. Yes, sir.
Hello everybody, my name is Gene Sweeney, nice to meet you. Homeless is not everywhere. Homeless is everywhere here in Columbia, but as somebody that was homeless 21 years ago, I remember every day. Most of you people don't realize what it's like to walk the streets all day, have to go to work all day. Shit, you didn't eat nothing, not no place to make anything to eat, but you gotta work. When I grew up, there was no homeless shelters, guys, there was nothing. There's nothing. You're lucky to survive, you know? So here we are, 21 years later. You see, it's not all the homeless people that's the problem in this town. To be honest, it was my friend. I know him personally, right? We see each other every day. I'm out here walking dogs in the community. Walk 5, 6, 7 miles a day. It's not the homeless people, it's all your problem. There's a shooting last night. You can't go to the parks. People are threatening to kill little babies. It's not the homeless people doing it. The homeless population in that shelter, I'm saying, what, 60% are all older people that work their entire lives and can't afford to live. That's horrible. That's horrible. And here we are. We're all bitching and complaining. I mean, he's my friend. I have nothing but respect for my friend here. But as a community, we're supposed to help one another now. Right? I mean, people, we're all people. Look, I was an asshole. I sucked as a kid. I was horrible, horrible. But here I am today. I own my house, I own my car. I train dogs. I'm out in the community. Most of you know me, right? Most of you guys know me. I'm out here every day. And I'm not homeless no more. These people, until you're in their shoes and you have to work, you have to feed yourself, you have no place to live, it's not easy. It's not easy. And until you do it, you can't talk about it unless you do it. I mean, you can talk all day. Until you turn blue, you talk to the wall, and you're going to talk back, right? So, like, until you do it, you can't talk. There's nothing to talk about. But the homeless population, yeah, we have problems. We have problems. This whole community, we have problems. It's not the homeless, guy. There's a little piece of the problem, we got a bigger problem. And that's the part we all need to come together and fix, you know? My friend here, he knows that if something's going on in his shop, I'll fix it for him. He knows it, you know what I mean? But we need to help each other. We need to help each other. All the bitching, all the complaining, all the fighting, the bickering, it's never going to get you anywhere. The walls don't talk back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next question? Anyone?
Pastor Tom Groves from Columbia Methodist Church, and I guess the one thing is I've been listening to stories and in the community and stuff, and the one thing I found, I think it comes down to just making sure we're all informed. I know in my journey and what we do at our church that there's always that kind of stereotype that if you don't look a certain way or you don't fit in a certain way, then you're up to something bad, so to speak, or whatever. And I think that's one of the things that we struggle with is that if people are different from us, then they must be bad people or they might be up to something instead of just kind of hearing their stories. And I know that that's one stigmatism that we've had. We work with Blueprints, and I know the first time we had Blueprints come in, it was hide the salt and pepper shakers because they're going to do the salt and pepper shakers. And then you got to know the people and you hear the stories, and they're great people. And it's just the fact that they're saying, I don't want to be here, but I'm trying to get my life back together. So I'm glad everybody's here tonight. I just want to say that because we all are part of this solution together. And I think it's been echoed many times to say we need to do this together and work together as a community. The question I have, Dave, is have you talked to anybody from Echoes in Elizabethtown about how their shelters start? Because I know when I was a pastor in Elizabethtown, we actually came here to Columbia to see how your shelter ran to start a shelter in Elizabethtown, and then it branched out to Echoes, which has a bigger program. So how does that fit into things? My question.
Excuse me, sir. He's going to answer those questions after when the panel starts.
So I would just say, that would be one question, but I would just say overall, just, we're all in this together. It's our community, and whether you're homeless or whether you have a house, we're all still here in Columbia, and they want this to be their community for a reason. And it's probably, as I've heard say, because people care about them and love them, and people are saying, hey, I see your need, how can I help you? So again, thanks for everybody coming tonight, and I hope that we can all work to be a part of the solution and just kind of really listen and tear down our stereotypes and our barriers, and actually kind of listen without kind of listening to respond, but just to listen.
We got a question of the gentleman behind. No, you're good. Any other questions before we go to the panel?
Can I do a follow-up?
Yes.
Good.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Council President is trying to take over my job.
I'm sorry. I just It's a
I
slip.
just want to clear up a comment here tonight. And maybe I'm not very articulate when I said about, I'm not sure if I said I'm afraid to go to the shelter. Okay, if I said that, maybe I said it the wrong way. However, there's probably, I'm sure there's a few in this room that are very involved with the homeless. Okay? Well, I'm very proud to say that I'm one of them. I don't have to go to a shelter to help people. Okay? I talk to them at night. I talk to them during the day. So I don't want to be one that's stereotyping somebody or I look at everybody as an equal. Okay? I do that. So, you know, I made a practice that if somebody's willing to talk to me, I'm willing to sit and listen. You know, we had this one gentleman that came across the street. I looked at him and I said, "You have to be hungry." He said, "I am." So I made him 2 meals. And you know what I said to him? I said, "I don't want anything in return other than maybe we can help you out." I said, "Why don't you come with me tomorrow morning? Because we adopted this block. So why don't you help me pick up trash? Meet me here 6 o'clock, 6:30 in the morning." Okay? I haven't seen him for months. But that's fine. Okay? So I am one not to run from them or not to look on it as different. I have been helping them privately. So just have to understand that not everybody is here to try to get them out of the way. You know, they need help. We know that. There's many reasons they need help. There's many reasons they're homeless. But you have to understand that there are people like me that are behind the scenes that help in many ways. Okay, so I'm grateful for what the churches are doing, but there has to be a solution, and that solution starts tonight. And there has to be. I truly believe the start of it is not to have that location as a homeless shelter. I'm sorry that people don't like what I'm saying, but I don't want to push them out in the field. I don't want to push them wherever. We need to find them a place. And the one gentleman here, great speech. I appreciate everything you went through. You know, but the answer is, if I have to urinate, I got to urinate. I don't get that answer. I don't get that. You know, it's public urination. I know they have to go somewhere, but that kind of surprised me. And I loved your story. You're an inspiration, and I appreciate that. Okay, but I just want to clear something up here. That now, just because I'm here tonight, not opposing, but I want you to know that there are people that do help, that aren't in public office, that aren't associated with a church. There's people that do care. There are people that do care in this town. So Columbia is good about that. Okay? So I hope you all recognize that. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions before we go to the panel? Any questions?
Can I make a comment?
Yeah,
questions or comments?
Please come to the podium.
Hi, my name is Kathy Dingle. I grew up in town as Kathy Smith. I spent the first 23 years of my life here in Columbia. And even back then, we had a small homeless population who would hang out here on the steps where the Masons used to be. Some of them hung out by choice. They had homes, they just chose not to go to them. And the problem is much greater than that now, I realize. But the point I want to make is I'm part of Ironville United Methodist Church, and we do volunteer at the shelter twice a month. We also purchase things that are needed. There's a wish list put out. We try to meet that need. But the point I want to make is I take my 3 grandchildren who are 7, 6, and 5 to serve at the shelter so that they can learn that not everybody has advantages they have. Because I think kids today take things for granted. And it's been a wonderful opportunity for my 3 kids. I didn't bring them tonight because I wanted to come to the meeting. and didn't tell them I was coming because they would have been heartbroken not to come. They've gotten to know people at the shelter. They love taking food for people who are not able to come inside. They just love to serve they serve desserts and drinks, and they really enjoy doing that. And I'm hoping that will help them to be more sensitive people as they grow up. It may not, but I'm praying that it does. And I'm also praying that a home can be found, a building can be found that is a better solution than what is at the church. Not knocking that, Pastor Dave, not at all. It's a great location for now. But the permanent solution is to find a place where people can have more individualized, or like roommate rooms or something like that. But we need to get to that point together as a group, not pulling in different directions, but going in one direction to work together to find a building for the children to be housed in. And thank you for letting me give my speech.
Any other questions or comments? Yes.
Hi, I'm April, and I probably see this on a lot of different spectrums of things. I was employed with the Presbyterian Church for many years, and to follow up what was just said, my daughter grew up in that church in the shelter, back when we used to have mats and it used to be on the floor. And she probably was 4 or 5, and as soon as those doors opened up and it was time for dinner, she was right down there with them, hanging out. They shared snacks together, Legos, puzzles, drawing, and just because I'm not physically at that location doesn't mean that I don't go in there multiple times just to see how people are doing. Do you need something? Say hi. And even just sitting outside, then does that lump me into the people that people don't want to see hanging on the steps at the church? Because maybe I carry a backpack because I carry too much stuff to fit in a purse, so do I look like I'm homeless then too? And yeah, I showed up in sweatpants, I'm sorry. But the thing is, if people, the businesses, there's nowhere, I can't even go to the laundromat to do my laundry and worry about having to go to the bathroom because there's nowhere to go to the bathroom. So you gotta go all the way back home to go to the bathroom, but if you don't have a home to go to, or a public restroom to even let you use their bathroom, there isn't a lot you can do. They hold it till nighttime when nobody's looking. But I just wanted to let people know, I've met so many people doing outreach work, that I don't have worries when I go out. I will go walk down the alley at nighttime by myself. It doesn't really faze me. And also I know if my kid is at her friend's house, 4 or 5 people are gonna report to me that they saw her and where she was at and should she be there and what was she doing. Because they know her from being brought up that way. And they're more, most people that are unhoused are most of the people that I spend more of my time talking to and are more likely to help me than the people that live in the same building as me. And I think if everybody just made a little tiny connection, it doesn't have to be a big blown out conversation. Sometimes you just gotta plant just a little bit of hope in somebody, or just lift them up a little bit for that moment, and it can just change their whole mindset for the day. Just that little thing. Or they might think about it later down the road and they'll be like, you know what, I remember this person said this, and I am worth being able to try and get better or do better or find better. And then there is the problem with housing. I've lived here for 10 years. I pay double now what I paid when I first got here. So that's not making things any easier for anybody to find anywhere to live. Even just to try and find a new apartment, it's we can't because it's outrageous. And if we keep gentrifying and upping things, you're gonna see a lot more homeless people.
Right.
Like, maybe half of us in this room, because the prices are insane and people are getting greedy. And we could just end all of this by like everybody being kinder, you know? And it's not a people problem, it's not a homeless problem, it's not an unhoused problem, it all comes back to like, it's a sick problem basically. Like you judge somebody, or like they're not good enough, or this place, you know, your credit score not quite good enough for this building, you know what I mean? But we have this other thing over here, it's really, like there's not a door and stuff, but like the windows are broken, but it should be okay for you, right? Like you don't really care. And I think that that's what people need to think about when they wonder why people haven't moved on from where they're at a shelter or unhoused. Because like there isn't good housing. There's not housing at an affordable rate, especially like they're saying for people in Social Security. And they have worked all their life. Like I couldn't imagine if that was like one of my grandparents or even my parents, that there wouldn't be somewhere for them to go. And everybody is somebody's child, and everybody is somebody's mother, and somebody's brother, and somebody's grandparent. And I think we all need to treat each other like that. That we're all children of God, and we should all care for one another, and love yourself, like love your neighbor like yourself, and do what you can to be nice. Like it's free to be nice. That's it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
May I just ask you from back here, because it'll take longer to go to the podium. Okay,
You have a good voice.
Okay, thank you. There was an organization called City Gate that met Sunday mornings in the first block west of Hinkle's. They met for a couple hours on Sunday mornings. It was a place of gathering for fellowship. It closed within the last year, and I talked to several people, never given a clear answer as to why. And I was just wondering when the panel gets to comment, if he could just answer if anyone knows why it closed.
They just moved a building down.
They moved it?
Yeah, it's just like one building down.
Okay, thank you.
And it's meeting the same time and everything?
Yeah, they have a.
We can discuss that outside.
We will do that. We will do that. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, one of the major problems is to have a building somewhere, an empty building that would
go with right.
Oh, yeah, go on. I think one of the big problems would be is just the buildings, that we gotta have accessible need for all these people to come and more people to come. But we need either a grant from the state or someone, but the state takes care of the school kids and stuff like that. But, I mean, for these people, they need help too, and maybe the state or someone else can give us money to get a building in the borough, because everybody that's sheltered walks, you know? So I just feel as if we can get a building, all these people won't be crowded in these little circles or wherever we have to go. It's something that we can expand and make something big out of it in Columbia. I've lived here all my life. I've lived here for 7 years. And I just think we have to pick a building. And that way, they can't complain about us moving back and forth and where we're moving to. But then we're also going to need help organizing it and running it. So it's a big job, you know, but it's a start as far as getting the building itself accessible, handicap accessible everywhere, you know, so that we can, you know, build upon it. I mean, we gotta start somewhere. We can't keep moving back and forth to different places. We have to have a place where people can help support us in our needs for Columbia. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? Any more? We've had. Oh,
I just have one
yes,
quick one. Y'all are making me proud in here. Wish I could do more. But my one question is, and I don't know the answer to this, and you kind of helped me with this. Years back, before the homeless shelter was down on 4th Street, we used to do the homeless shelter from church to church to church. I know St. John's Lutheran Church, where I'm the secretary at, we used to do it for I think a month at a time, if I remember correctly. And my question is that a possibility in the future? But I understand the moving all around is not fun.
Thank you. Any more questions?
I don't have it.
Comments?
Yeah, it's a comment. It's a thought. I'm listening to everyone, and I'm grateful that the one gentleman started out with that we can do it. But it seems like we have three distinct groups that we need to service. We have the homeless that can't afford a house. We have those who are at day shelter, and he's done a wonderful job, but he seems to be the point man that everybody's throwing darts at.
Yeah.
And our problem isn't just those in the shelter. The transient people will always be here, but we need to help them also. So we need solutions for three different groups of people. We can't just say, get rid of the shelter and move it, and that's our answer. It is not our answer. We have three groups we need to serve. Those who are transient, and how do we get them that when they're coming through, like he said, they're not staying, they're passing through. They're looking for a better ground or something different. We need to help them. One of the things I was thinking about was places that would give them dignity, a place to take a shower, a place to wash their clothes, and it would be a well-known place that every store downtown, because most people go to the center of a town when they first come in, that they would be able to tell them where they can go when they notice. People shouldn't have to beg for help. You can see it. We're adult, we're mature, and we know that. So when we see someone drowning, we should be able to point a place that at least you can get a shower, at least you can have some dignity while you're passing through. If you decide to stay, we can point you to somewhere else to go. And we've had statistics that this area's rent is higher than any place else.
Right.
Why is that? And we have so many people. It would help alleviate some of the problems if we had places that people could go to that weren't so high on their rent. Just a
Just right here. Is there any kind of incentive, like, to the landlords in town to, when you go to rent, you have to have your first month's, like, a security deposit and then your rent. Is there any kind of incentive that you would offer, that we could offer to the landlords to say, look, these people need a house, they don't have the money, can you work something out and get them on their feet, they have a job, and get them rolling that way?
That's something the panel will have to discuss.
There are county initiatives like that.
Yes, there are.
We'll speak to that.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I'll just be real quick. My name's Tim Deal. I work at Water Street Mission. Got to know Dave a little bit, and I work with the Dream Center. I'm just really grateful for the passion and the work that they're doing. But also really hopeful about the resources that exist in this room, because it's been said numerous times, this is not something that, like, Dream Center can't figure this out on their own. Business leaders are problem solvers and innovators, and we need to come together and nothing happens without collaboration. And something we learned a lot in Lancaster City is that we couldn't do anything without for-profits, non-profits, government coming together to kind of put our heads together and trying to figure out how to do this. So we need each other, grateful for the work that's being done, and there's a lot of good work to do yet.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we are going to go to our panel, our community panel. I know Pastor Dave was asked a question by the gentleman over here. Do you remember that question he asked?
Can I have it one more time? Because it was a long time ago. Tom.
This question was, Dave, have you talked to anybody from Echoes to Elizabethtown?
Yes. In fact, we've had several meetings with Bree and the folks there about how they run their program. Of course, we run a similar program. They have a lot of letters after some of their names. That's a large budget. You know how they reach their budget? They sell church bonds.
Oh, okay.
They sell church bonds. So that takes a community effort funded by the ministerium, working together with civil authorities, including law enforcement, to sell shares to build the current facility that they have. Now, Echoes, mind you, is a winter only, what we call a winter only. They're only open in the winter time, December through March. The end of March is Echoes, and then they run their Enlightenment Center, I think it's called, that they connect people to services through their staff. And they have a really, really nice staff and a really nice facility. We've been very interested in how that procedure begins, what the genesis would be of something like selling bonds. But it comes from the local churches who buy into the shelter system, and then they put it in a central location. So I hope that answered your question, Tom. But thank you, Pastor, for bringing that up.
Pastor, you may go on.
May go on?
You may go on.
Now, where do I start?
Where do you start? At the beginning.
At the beginning, and it's all I can tell you is what we do and the history of what we've done. 1 year ago, I stood at that podium. In fact, it was October of 2022, and I said, we need to work together. Even though it has become a church problem for those of us who are affiliated with Columbia Presbyterian, I've been here for the last 19 plus years, and we've been running that a homeless outreach that didn't really come from us. It came from us on a larger scale, which is the Columbia Ministerium, many of whom are here today. But it also came from an organization that was called Columbia Life Network. And that was related to the Borough of Columbia that pulled together civic leaders, religious leaders, business leaders to run a program, basically a nerve center, a connector for people. And there was a gentleman there who began to notice, along with the ministerium, that there was a growing homeless problem in Columbia. And those conversations began in late 2005, I do believe, a long time ago. But what happened was a broad base was built through a series of what they call broad-based meetings, and a foundation was built that became ultimately the rotating shelter system, with the nerve center being at Columbia Life Network at the time, under a gentleman named Dr. Jim Bamberger. Some of you will remember Jim. That's what took us into the beginning of that system in 2006. We were part of that system, but there are other churches represented here tonight that were part of that system as well. It did rotate, sometimes 3 weeks at a church, sometimes 2 weeks at a church. We found two things. One, when we became centralized, it was 2016 at 4th and Mill Street. That worked better because of the amount of population that we've had to serve and the amount of services that come out of that location. It would also let everybody knew where the shelter was. It was kind of tough to move the shelter every 2 weeks. And then COVID happened, and it was really impossible to get people to rotate anything because it was hard enough to have church and worship services. So to that, the winter shelter that began rotating here did work for a time. But we've evolved into it's a whole different world now in 2023. With what we face with homelessness. We know, I brought up the newspaper article that came through LMP a long time ago now, but homelessness has increased fivefold in Lancaster County in the last few years. And there are probably in Lancaster City a little over 50 that we know of at the last point in time count, which was, Mylan, was it February? Right, yep. Well, in February, I think it was 53. That's what ended up in the newspaper article at the time. That's only people they know about. In the borough of Columbia, that number is 18. It was second only to the city of Lancaster. Why? There are myriad reasons. The other communities have grown in homelessness. So the problem is bigger than it used to be. Thank God, we weren't overwhelmed this past summer like we were in 2022. We had about 30 people on the full ministry. We don't have that. We have about 15 people still with us. To go on with that, 9 of those people at last count were employed. 9 out of 15. Some folks are on disability. Some folks need work. They help with us. Do volunteer work to help them take with us. To the questions about inspection. Our building gets safety inspected like any other building in the Borough of Columbia. Our doors are open. We are packed to the gills. It's like a miniature ecosystem at Fort Locust right now because of the amount of stuff we do. We cannot expand any farther than we are. And we're downright uncomfortable sometimes. I love going in there Saturday mornings to work on my sermon because there's nobody in the building but me. And it's like, yes. But then I feel guilty about it. Who's open now? City Gate is open in the morning, I think, still on Saturday morning. So that might be a location for people to go. What else can I touch on? Background checks. Tim, you brought those up. People are background checked in a number of different ways. We can talk about that some more. I will say that we use the UJS system. We also use Megan's Law system. If there's anything you ever want to know about what our policies and procedures are, through meetings with the Borough of Columbia, we have put a link on our website, columbiahas.org. Under homeless shelter, you click the button that says learn more. All the policies and procedures are there. We don't have enough of that. But we could, because it's all there. And that came out of meetings with the Borough of Columbia, the leadership here. So we moved a little closer to a solution, even though we don't have a solution, and we're packed to the gills, and yes, we need a permanent location. We will all stand here that are part of our staff and say it would be nice to have another location. We are part of the Homeless Coalition, the Coalition to End Homelessness of Lancaster County. The hope for location is going to have 40 beds in it when that property becomes available. Where, when, I don't have an answer for you right now as far as when that property would become available. I pray to God that the property becomes available before someone decides we need to go. The idea of sleeping at night with that thought has haunted me since we had to move from Fort Mill, I'll be honest with you. That's just what I feel in my heart. But I also have a higher authority called the Bible. And I'm following the Word of God to the best of my ability. And that includes all God's people, and not just the homeless. It also includes people like the merchants tonight that are a little bit hurt because it's a little tougher to get started maybe than they hope. I hear you. Your store is beautiful. And I'm not blowing smoke. I'm going to come in. And I hope you come in too. We talked about 18 unsheltered. We talked about the need for a permanent location. We talked about background check, safety inspection. I have a paper here from the Department of Agriculture. We're inspected at least once a year by agriculture. So they're going to want to see the inspection. I come from the radio business. The FCC came in once a year or so, hopefully less than that. But we had to keep a public file, and that was open for anybody that wanted to come see it. Same thing, you want to come see our report from agriculture, please come in. We have an exterminator that comes at least 4 times a year. It's a miniature ecosystem. It's tough. We have a lot of room to take up, and we have a lot of people that help to keep things right because we have a lot of people that help. The need is that great. So I hope that this is the beginning, and we've been able to find some nuggets tonight that we can turn into gold. It's not fool's gold. Mark and I were talking about prospecting for gold. Let's take some things that we can learn tonight and put them to work. Whether it's a consortium, whether it's a group of civic, business, and religious leaders that come together, form a nonprofit. We're going to be the Dream Center, but we don't have to have a homeless shelter in our building. The Dream Center's focus is on the person, making the person more whole and better. It includes hunger, it includes connection to resources. But the other thing that we need to do is find a place to help move people through this system so they don't get stuck. Because when they get stuck, that's when the breakdowns happen, and I get called to do funerals sometimes, unfortunately. Anything else like this?
You will answer questions after the.
I will answer questions, yeah, absolutely.
Anything else, Pastor Dave?
Best I can, best I can.
I'm going to turn my attention to Heather Morrison Zink. Any comments or questions right away?
No, I believe someone mentioned we all need to come together, and we do have we do have a group that has been meeting for, how often does it meet? A couple of months. Columbia Connections, that includes all of the different groups that need to help people, and we talk about these things and what can be done and what needs we're seeing with this. And I think the last time there was, we're seeing that we need more community-based health. There's community health concerns. So the Family First was looking to get more people out in the community for community health support, things like that. So it's not like we're not doing anything. Everyone keeps saying, we all need to come together. We are coming together, and we are working on things. But because there's this perception that the borough needs to find a building and turn it over, and that's gonna solve everything. That's not gonna solve everything. And I mean, I think for every one of our meetings, we always talk about that at Columbia Connection. Where is this gonna go? I mean, we've sat here and had brainstorms about properties and where can it go. I'd like to know where there's a property. I mean, that would house 40 people. It's just, we can't pull something out of thin air. So, but we are working on the different things with the people that can actually help and make things happen, the right people. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Heather. I'm going to turn it over to the police chief. Back Rob.
Thank you. I wanted to start out this evening first and foremost by thanking all of you. Thank you for being here. If you've spoken or listening, just your presence alone speaks volumes. This issue, brings out a lot of passion. And unfortunately, I can tell you as a chief of police for almost 13 years, we have been discussing this. We've had large meetings. I think the last large one, Chris, I think you were present, was maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And I absolutely agree with Chris. This is going to take a collaboration. We need to have some sort of interdisciplinary team, bringing resources together, bringing the experts together. Our police officers are on the front line, and we have worked closely with the Dream Center. I was a board member on Columbia Life Network for about 8 years, so I am familiar with the issue here. There's no question about it. And I can also tell you our officers try to do what we can to help those who are homeless, those who are on the streets, who need resources. Today it is becoming increasingly difficult. Many of our interactions are negative. We're getting more and more concerns expressed from the residents here in town. So now is the time that we all come together to try and find some solutions to this. And once again, thank you for being here. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Chief Rob. Now we'll turn attention to Mark Stiver, Borough Manager.
Thank you all for being here. It's funny, I used to actually help run 12-step support groups. And those of you who know the 12 steps know step number 1, which is what? Admit you have a problem, right? So we acknowledge, and one of the things I pick up here tonight is we're acknowledging that there is a situation here that needs a solution. And I think the first step in our community healing is to say, you know what, we do have a situation here. but not without hope, not without options, not without a path forward. But it's going to take a team effort to get there. I can tell you that I had the honor and privilege of living overseas. I lived in Amsterdam for 9 years. And 8 of those years I spent working on the streets, helping people get their lives back together. It's not an easy task. It's not a pretty task. It's, Chris, I think you said it well, there's a lot of unattractiveness in that process. But there's something amazing about seeing people's lives turned around. And I think that's the blessing. I've had the privilege of being here in Columbia almost 3 years. And thank you, almost 4 years. I'm sorry, COVID doesn't count. That was a year that just didn't count. It didn't count at all. Time work. Doing fine. No, I'm not going to say it. One of the questions I asked myself when I came here, and something that I've asked myself in every place I've lived, is what is the personality, what is the spirit of the community we live in? You go to a city like Amsterdam, and everybody asks a question right here, what's in Amsterdam? Sex? All over the place. You know, drugs? Absolutely. Drug capital. Diamonds? #1 diamond cutting place in the world. I don't know if you know that or not. Banking. And I used to take people on tours around the city, and I'd say, what do you see? And of course, I love it, because I take them right into the heart of the red light district, because it's always fun to shock people. And you see prostitutes, you see drug addicts, you see bums, you see homeless, you see about everything. One of the sayings we had in Amsterdam is the hardest thing to do in that city is stand out. Anything goes. But I'd ask people, what is it you see? And they would list. We'd have a whole list of all the negative things. And I'd say, that's the only thing in this city is all bad. Well, no. There's some good. All right, let's start filling the other side of the column up. Let's find the good that's here. So I come to Columbia, and I do the same thing that I've done in every community I've lived and worked in. I walk around, and I say, okay, where is the good? What do I see here that's a strength of this community? One of the first things you see is this town may fight like hell against each other. Come a time of need, we stand together. We work together. You may get mad at your neighbor. You may want to slip their tires because they parked in your spot. Do it. But that was you. Don't do it. But come a time of hardship, something goes wrong. We get a bad snowstorm. You know what you see when you go out and walk around town?
Neighbors helping neighbors.
Neighbors helping neighbors. People helping people. I think that is a core value of this community. So it's not an if we will help each other. I think it's down to how. So I've written down a few things that I see are critical needs here, critical things that we need to solve, if you will. #1, the location. We got to find a facility that's going to be good, and a facility that's going to work, and one that's going to provide the needs and services in an appropriate location. I thought someone was going to throw out an idea quick.
Well, I was wondering how many properties are available.
You know what, there's lots of properties, and it may not be a property, it might be 2 properties, you might have to find several that this will work in.
Second motion.
There's a couple, but there's a couple that's coming up too. So let's serious brainstorm, and if you want to talk to me at the end, you want to give me your information, I'll grab some business cards. You can contact me. Let's seriously look for a location or 2 that is going to work for us. That's going to work as a place that's going to help. 2, we need volunteers, we need workers, we need helpers to do the work. And Pastor Dave and I spend a lot of time together. We talk, we're getting to know each other better and better. It's not up to one church, it's not up to one organization to fix this. I think it's going to be us as a community coming together to find how this all works. And I'll say I agree with Heather. It's not that the borough suddenly has this large pot of money that we're going to run out and we're going to spend $3 million and we're going to have a building and build it. But it doesn't mean that the money is not there. It doesn't mean we can't find it. Let's work together and find that solution. Let's find the right people. I know when I was working in Amsterdam, one of the advantages we had is we had a team of trained professionals that would help. Those who are trained and certified in addiction recovery that can help with that. Believe it or not, those who are trained in financial management that can help people say, okay, you know what? You're working. Now let's teach you how to get your money to do what it needs to do and have your money work for you and get you into the right spot in the right place. Let's find the right team, let's get the right professionals in here that can support that which is already happening and that can build it and make it stronger, right? Let's do that. Let me tell you this. There is a group of mayors, there's 18 boroughs here in the county, don't get me started on civics, it's boring as hell. 18 boroughs, 60 total municipalities here. Of those 18 boroughs, those mayors all get together. One of the things they're talking about is the homeless situation here in Lancaster County. Columbia Borough is part of the Intermunicipal Committee. We in government like long, confusing initials that mean absolutely nothing. The LAMC, as an organization of local governments, is working on homelessness and how homelessness can be looked at from a regional perspective. We have the County Homeless Coalition. We have Columbia Connections. And I'm sure I'm missing about 10 more organizations that are all working together to find this. The one thing that I have discovered in all the years I've been doing this is so often we have 10 organizations all working in different directions. I think we need to find a way that we can all pull in the same direction. All work together. We have the resources here. We have the ability. We have Chris, who's going to coordinate. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Would absolutely volunteer to do that right now.
Yes.
And I think we have some really good people to jump on the teams.
We do.
I'm ready. I was
So-
ready last year, too.
I think that's of the key things, and as we move forward, I think there's going to be more and more processes, more steps, more things needed. But I think we need to get a start, and I think to encapsulate all this together, I think we honestly need to pull together a team of, a small team, nothing worse than a committee of 50. I'm not doing absolutely nothing for a long time. Oh, there you go, get 50 people together with all different opinions. Get a small team together. You know the definition of a committee? It's a one-way cul-de-sac. Learned that years ago, I love that. Path down which ideas go and never return. I think we need a small team of people that can get together, that have the energy and drive and passion and knowledge to do this and do this right. Let's form that, let's find that group. Let's pull together the resources that are already in this county. Let's look at the power that we have already among us, all of us. And let's find some solutions. I can tell you that I will be glad to sit on this team. We'll work together. We'll find other people of the right group, and let's get going on this thing. Thank you.
Any comments or questions for this panel? Yes, ma'am. You taking your twin with you, or?
No, I'm just going to sit right here because I have
Okay,
big enough
great.
and everybody can hear me. And I have a question for you. In the meantime, make this committee. I've heard here a couple times that we're going to make the shelter go away. Are we going to let the shelter stay where they are until you put your program going? Because the shelter moved a while ago, and there was no place for them to go. And now all of a sudden there's a place to go. But in the meantime, that's great. I'm glad to hear that. But in the meantime, is the shelter going to be allowed to stay where it's at? Because that shelter is my heart and soul.
I don't see the shelter going anywhere immediately. I think we have to find a better location for it. I think the longer it stays where it is, the more tension is going to continue to build in the downtown. I say let's work on finding a location sooner than later. But I don't think as a borough, I don't want to speak for council, but as a manager, I am not out to pick the shelter out of its current location. I'm out to help them find a better one.
I don't know where that rumor came from, but that.
I heard it is nothing.
Yeah, well.
No, they said don't before they shut us down.
Yeah.
That's not
I don't know
the goal of the borough to shut anything
No,
down.
I don't know where that even came from.
I think we got.
That's what I.
Okay. Yeah, we got to find a better place.
Okay, comments, questions, Frank?
My name is Frank Alfred, lived in Columbia all my life. Come to the meeting tonight to see what I could learn about the situation. I was absolutely impressed when I walked in the building. If we could only get part of these people to our council meeting. Wow, I'm telling you. But anyway, what I'd like to find out, what I'd like to hear, is there any way of knowing what we're really dealing with? How many homeless is here? What happens when a homeless comes into town? Where do they go? Do they go to your place? Do they just go around the stores? Or I've seen in the past 6 months, usually a Saturday I'll drive down by the river. One time I seen a homeless person laying in front of the building down there, all bundled up, must have had 15 shirts and so many pants and everything on. But I don't see what the people are seeing. I'm not saying it isn't here. And on the other hand, is there any way of documenting and knowing how many of these people that we have? Now, I'm not saying, brand them like cattle. I'm not referring to that. But we have to know what we're dealing with before we can solve the problem. So, and then the other thing I'd like to find out is, Pastor, tell us how your shelter is working, how you feed them, how often, what's going to happen when the 0 temperatures come. That's what I come to hear. And I also, but I'm not going to hear this, is I'd like to know how some of these people become homeless. That would be a good question. When I come up 30, westbound out there at the intersection, there's always 1 or 2 people there. Yep, you got it. I got plenty doubts on some of this, what's going on there, and it might hurt the homeless. But that's what I come to hear.
Thank you, Frank.
Thank you.
Thank you, Frank.
I'll do my best to answer your question. Unfortunately, there are what we call scammers out there, and some of them are really homeless, and some of them are kind of working from one exit of Route 30 to another little part of town. And that does happen, unfortunately, and sometimes those people are homeless and they don't come to us. But as far as having an idea on the number, we had a little exchange during the time I spoke before. I was kind of back and forthing with Mylan back there about the point in time count, which is something the coalition does once a year. That happens in February. What we intend to do is find out, we know how many people are in our shelter on a given night, which changes almost daily. But we need to get a figure on how many unsheltered there are out there right now. So that number 18 that I brought up earlier was how many we know about. It's a moving target, it's a snapshot of a moving target. And that happened in February. So the 18 is the number that stands out right now. Those are just people that we know about. There could be fewer than 18, there could be more than 18. But that's the general measuring stick that we use as far as that. When someone comes into town, sometimes they call 211 because they might be coming after business hours. So what they do is they call and they wait to punch in their zip code, and then that tells them where their resources are available for them. Those are county-wide numbers, if I'm correct. When you will go out and someone punches in the Lancaster County zip code, it gives you basically where to go. Our Restart Center is open Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. We have a certified recovery specialist on the staff. We have a staff of 2 plus a volunteer that comes once a week, and we do need more volunteers. Hopefully they come to us because we're open 5 days a week, most of the day. And we can work on connecting somebody, whether it's a job search, whether it's a housing search, if they need to enter recovery. We have a relationship with Blueprints. We've sent, and they work fast to get people where they need to go. Benefits, something as simple as ID, those things happen in the Restart Center to the best of our ability 5 days a week. The shelter opens at 5 p.m. Monday through Sunday, so every day of the week it opens at 5 p.m. and it's open until 8 a.m. The hours were constructed for risk, let's just say risk management reasons. We are closed for a brief period of time, but during the week we segue folks from the shelter right into the Restart Center, so we don't have a big overlap with folks out in the street. In the summer, we have a little more off time because we still feed kids during the summer food service program, so we're feeding children while we're housing homeless people at the same time. And it does, but we also have attorneys that like us to keep things separate, if you understand what I mean. We have insurance companies that like to keep things separate. So we do what we can to manage risk in the best possible way. Was there something I missed, Mr. Doctor?
Pretty well covered it. What happens when you get 0 temperature? And also, do they have a place to shower?
Yes, we have a shower. Like I said, it's a mini ecosystem. We have a shower, we have laundry facilities that can help people get by. Once a week, the shower truck called Refresh Lancaster comes to town, and is Pastor Harris still here? There he is. It's at Salem UCC in the back parking lot there off Walnut Street. Is that Avenue H, I believe? That's available largely for the unsheltered. The folks that are staying with us have a shower they can go to. That's correct. 0 temperatures. We have a code blue of our own we have for years. When the forecast is high at less than 32 degrees, we try to make our facilities open to people all the time. The county has a different code blue system that they will call when temperatures are but it's supposed to be 3 days in a row when there's forecasted temperatures of like 20 degrees with wind chill applied. And then we have to open up all of our space to people at the behest of the county, because we will get a call from the borough too saying, what are you doing about? Remember last December when we had like 6 degrees and high winds there right around Christmas? And yes, we did have, we were searching the streets because we were looking for that person that's bundled up sleeping behind the bushes just in case. But the county calls that, and they also call it in the summertime when it's going to be 95 right now, because people do die of things other than low temperatures. They die from heat stroke. So that's we do the best we can working with the county to achieve those ends.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I just have a comment. There's no I in teamwork. Right? So for all y'all to come together and help each other, thank you.
Yes.
I'm going to have to run because this is going on, which is wonderful. But I just wanted to call attention to, and I'm sorry I'm back up here again, I'm overstepping my 3 minutes. I don't remember the gentleman's name, but there was a gentleman when I was doing meals at 4th Street, 4th and Mill, who was there. He was elderly. He was not able to work anymore. He was in a motorized wheelchair. I get who are these people? Where do they come from? I don't get it. Where are they? No. This man was a active duty combat veteran from Korea and Vietnam in a homeless shelter.
Could everybody keep it down?
A combat veteran who served in 2 consecutive wars for our country in a homeless shelter in Columbia, Pennsylvania. Yeah, there are scammers. There are people who are manipulative. There are drug addicts. There are people who are down and out for reasons that we can attribute to them if that's what we want to do. And there are veterans of multiple wars as well. And it was the Dream Center that got that man into the Veterans Hospital that he should have been in to get the care that he should have been getting all along for the rest of his life. That's all I got.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I'm just going to go around our panel. Let's start with Chief Robert. Any other last minute comments?
And just once again, thank you for being here. Appreciate it so much. Thank you.
And I'll echo what the chief said. Thanks for coming tonight. One of the things that we learned, it's always a learning process. And one of the things we did to learn was in 2014, I started going to the original Dream Center in Los Angeles. And we do a yearly mission trip there. Sometimes I get there twice a year if I get away with it. We did a lot of our learning about how to serve communities by immersing ourselves in short-term missions in Los Angeles, which may look like it's all beauty. It kind of is from the nose up, but if you look from the nose down, it's a pretty dirty and broken place. A lot of Los Angeles, as much as I love LA, is a lot. It is, but that's why it's such a ripe mission field. And we learned about homelessness by going to Skid Row, where there's 54 blocks of homelessness. And it's also where we learned about homeless veterans, because they have an entire floor for homeless veterans, men and women. They don't run a shelter per se at the Dream Center, but they do take care of our veterans. And they do take care of women, mothers who are homeless. They do take care of kids, emancipated kids who age out of the foster care program by working on the person. I just wanted to bring some of that up because what Reverend Harris said about homeless veterans is something that we need to always be conscious of. Thanks.
Thank you, Pastor Dave. Council President Zink.
No, thank you all thank you all for coming again. And I'll echo Frank here on this. First, second, and fourth Tuesday night, it'd be great to see y'all come back to a council meeting. I'd love to have a full house.
Thank you, Heather. Mark Stivers, any last comments?
President Reagan once said, the scariest sentence in the English language is, hello, I'm from the government, I'm here to help. So true. But I hope we can change that a bit and say, hello, we're all from Columbia and we will help.
Amen.
Let's turn this around. Let this be the day we look back in history and say, remember that meeting? Remember that meeting that Barb pulled together and she did it on the eve of election night and all the voting equipment sitting in the back and we couldn't get it all set up in time and we had a room full of people and out of that came fill in blank. Out of that came the solution that's going to help solve this problem. So I'm excited. I have a lot of hope after tonight's meeting that the solution is here. The solution is going to come and we're going to find it. Thank you. Thank you guys for all being part of it.
I would just like to take me being the moderator tonight, have to keep a straight face between. I am so proud of this crowd to keep your concerns, your questions, everything in check, and being a community gathering together to solve a problem. And I believe this is the first start of it, something that we need to do. I'm so proud of everybody to keep your composure tonight. And thank you very much. And Barb will let us know where our next meeting is. And yes, but thank you very much. We are Columbians, and keep the Columbia faith going, and work as a team. Okay. Have a great night, and have a nice Thanksgiving.